The AU Falcon Mobile Office Pack is one of the rarest factory accessories for any car around the world. And it is the stuff of legends because it was incredibly unpopular back in the day and it sold in incredibly limited quantities. And trying to find one of them on the secondhand market today is nigh on impossible. Now, I was incredibly lucky to find one back in 2019, just after I bought my magnificent AU Fairmont, and I didn't even know these tables existed until I saw a post on Club AU on Facebook. And luckily enough, I found someone in the comment section who was selling one for $500. I bought that table and the rest is history. Now, I do not own it anymore because, truth be told, it is one of the most useless accessories going around. Sure, I ate lunch off it a couple of times, had a bit of fun with it, filmed a couple of videos, but mostly it is a massive pain in the ass. But this doesn't stop people asking on almost a weekly basis whether anyone's got one for sale and can I buy it. So look, finding one of these tables, as I mentioned, is pretty much impossible, but how about making the next best thing yourself? So this video has been a long time coming just because I've really carefully considered whether I actually wanted to release these details at all. But I've decided in the end, because this table and this accessory is so rare, 99.99% of people are never going to see one ever in their life. So why not have a go at making one yourself? So what I got here on the screen are some plans of this mobile office table. Now, I wasn't able to get this thing 3D scanned, but I took a lot of measurements of it. And this is pretty much a fairly accurate representation of what the mobile office table is. So we've got the top side on the left, we've got the underside on the right, we've got a side view profile on the top, and then I've got all four angles of the leg, which attaches to the underside. So I'm gonna provide this on a printable A2 sheet. So if you wanna download that, have a look in the video description, click on the link and download the A2 PDF. In theory, if you get that thing printed 100% scaled at A2, it'll be the exact size and representation of what the AU Falcon Mobile Office Table dimensions are. And one more thing I need to explain here is this little rectangle here on the top view, that is where the leg is located underneath. So you are going to be missing a couple of details to do with that leg. However, I went ahead and crudely modeled a 3D version of it. So here we are looking at the top surface of the mobile office table. Details missing from that plan would be the depth of the drink holder. So if I just measure here, it is approximately 36 millimeters deep. You'll get the diameters from the plan. As far as the pen slot goes, it is only about 6.6, so 6 to 7 mil deep. Whether you actually need to put a pen slot in your table if you're making one is debatable, but certainly the cup holders were very handy. So as I mentioned, my modeling skills are fairly rudimentary. I'm using a program called SketchUp, and if anyone out there has used SketchUp, you would know it's pretty challenging to model something like this in SketchUp. The top surface was not too bad, but if we flip this thing over and have a look at the bottom, it is a little bit rough. So look, this is going to get you 90% of the way to the mobile office table experience, but it should be accurate where it matters. So if we have a look at the underside here, this little scalloped out area is the leg which sits on top of your gear shifter. So you can see it's kind of scalloped out to sit on top of the shifter. And there is a little sort of additional area here which is kind of scooped out, and that's where the shifter button is meant to sit. So a lot of the dimensions I took of this table when I owned it related to those points. It's the distance from the top surface to that bottom shifter leg. So that should be pretty accurate. For anyone who can't access the 3D model, I will do a measurement from the top surface to the bottom of the leg. It is 90 mil. And the little scalloped out section here is roughly 17 mil deep. As far as the rest of the table goes, I did try and accurately measure where the hinge point was on the leg, and also the sort of location of where the leg is situated. So if I unhide these objects, you can see I've got a rough representation of where the leg sits and also the shape of it. It is very rough, but look, if you're proficient in some of these modeling softwares, and I will save this in a few different formats and put it in a zip file in the description below, you might be able to grab this file and smooth out some of these edges. But really, all of the important sizes and shapes should be fairly close. So you can see where the leg is situated both in the folded position, but also the folded out position. And yes, I did try to accurately measure whereabouts that hinge point was located. So you should be able to get from that a fairly good indication of how that leg sits and then how it swivels out and where it will be located once it is swiveled. So the only other important notes here are you do need a little slot for the leg to fold down into. That is not too critical, it's just how it's going to look when it's folded up. So as I mentioned, this is pretty much a 90% version of the mobile office table. I didn't actually want to go and properly 3D scan this thing because I sort of wanted to protect how special the original tables are. And for the person who actually purchased mine and spent $2,500 on it, I didn't want to have people manufacturing these tables to that standard of product because I want the originals to stay special, but I want to let people actually have a go at making one themselves if they want to, because let's face it, you're never going to be able to find one anywhere. But even with these details provided, this kind of build is going to be fairly tricky. I mean, modeling the top was fairly easy, and cutting one out of a thickness of board I think would be pretty easy to do, but as soon as you move down here to the underside, on the original there was almost no surface which was flat. So it was a real pain to measure, and even this version here I think would be very challenging to try and make manually based off measurements from this 3D file. So realistically that leaves you with 3D printing, but the issue with that is the size. I think it would have to be printed in multiple pieces unless you had a really large format 3D printer. Because if I measure from end to end, it is roughly 420 mil high, or basically the length of it is 420 mil. The width is a little bit less, it's about 360 mil, but that is beyond most consumer level 3D printers when it comes to size. The leg would be a lot easier, but there would be a lot of 3D printer material required to actually build one of these on a 3D printer. Unless you dissected it into a couple of pieces and printed them and then sort of stuck it together, it's going to be a challenge no matter what you do. So what are your options from here? The first one is to 3D print it. The second one would be to try and find another material. Like if you're handy with wood, if you've done a lot of woodworking, you could potentially find a particular thickness of board which you might be able to layer up and then sort of scallop out the shapes as required. But look, let's not beat around the bush. Even with these details, it is going to be fairly challenging to make one of these. But let's say you have the tools, if you can 3D print on this size, if you've got the skills to sort of neaten my model up, my only plea to you is don't sell these commercially on eBay or on Facebook or anything, because that is really the sticking point with me and why it's taken me so long to actually provide all this information, because my biggest fear is someone's going to take all of this and start selling them commercially, and that's not really the idea or the goal of this. I don't want people to be profiting from someone else's design. This is not mine. I've just replicated what the real life object was and tried to put it into a 3D form. I actually once had the son of the man who designed this table. The guy who just designed it has unfortunately passed away, but I had his son in the comments section saying how proud he was to see his father's work to be remembered and to be enjoyed and cherished. So let's not commercialize this, if I can just put that plea out there. If you can help someone by 3D printing these and then selling them at cost or just a little bit above it, I would probably be more comfortable with that, because 3D printing one of these would be quite expensive. But I really don't want this accessory to be forgotten, and that's why I'm releasing this information. One of the other cool things about this table though is there are avenues here for customization. So if you take note of these special points, like where is the leg, what is the size of the leg, also in relation to the leg that sits on the shifter, you could potentially come up with any table design you like. I reckon one of these could be squared off to make it useful for your passenger as well, instead of just the driver. So you could totally, as long as you get those two mounting points roughly in position, you could do any table size or shape you want, and that could be a lot of fun. So that's about it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do end up making one of these tables, make sure you do tag me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see it. Please don't sell them commercially, otherwise I will personally come around and punch you in the dick. That's it, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.